this guy named Tucker Carlson, which I don't know if you know who he is or not. He's kind of a big deal.
A little bit about him.
Yeah, and he's a guy that is another one of those guys, part of the community that people like him a lot. And he's also a guy that knows how to get under people's skin, okay? Whether he does it intentionally or not, he kind of knows how to piss people off. He's on the show with this other guy that you'll like a lot and you're friends with. His name is Joe Rogan, Joseph Rogan. So they're on this podcast, they're talking. And Rob, if you can pull up this clip, there's this topic that comes up about nuclear, I don't know if you saw this, Japan. Go ahead and play this clip, Rob. Go for it.
Well, you could say the same about the atomic bomb, right?
Yes, you could.
And you could say that we have to develop it like Oppenheimer felt before the Nazis did.
I love that. How'd that work? How'd that work?
Well,
I love, by the way, that people on my side, I'll just admit it, on the right, have spent the last 80 years defending dropping nuclear weapons on civilians. Like, are you joking?
Right.
That's just like prima facie evil.
Yeah.
If you can't, if we hadn't done that, then this, that, the other thing, that was actually a great savings. Like, no, it's wrong to drop nuclear weapons on people. And if you find yourself arguing that it's a good thing to drop nuclear weapons on people, then you are evil. Like, it's not a tough one, right? It's not a hard call for you. It's not a hard call for me. So with that in mind, like, why would you want nuclear weapons? It's like just a mindless, childish sort of intellectual exercise to justify, like, oh no, it's really good because someone else will get it. How about no? How about like spending all of your effort to prevent this from happening? Would you kill baby Hitler, famously?
Right.
So I don't know why we're sitting back and allowing this to happen if we really believe it will extinguish the human race or enslave the human race. Like, how can that be good?
Is that the end of it? Rob, can you pull up the tweet? So that's his position, right? I want to hear your position. You live in Hawaii, all this other stuff. So there's kind of history behind it. So what other reaction do you have to it, Rob? Tell me which one you got, because there's a ton of them. Pick one of them. Just let me know which one you got. We'll pull it up.
That was a great For those of you who haven't heard that conversation yet, it's fascinating. They cover a lot of ground.
They cover a lot of ground. It is so entertaining. Probably the best conversation of the year, those two being together. I thought it was fascinating. Rob, maybe pull up the tweet of Jeremy Boring. With Jeremy Boring, the co-founder, founder of Daily Wire, he had the following to say about it. He says, people who deny the moon landing or suggest America is evil for the use of atomic weapons against Imperial Japan, or who say that George Bush was behind 9/11 actually hate this country.
Maybe I am stupid for asking this. Who is Jeremy Boring?
You being serious?
I'm being serious.
Okay. He is the CEO of Daily Wire.
Okay.
Like Ben Shapiro, Daily Wire.
Yeah.
That's who he is. So,
best friends with Candace, if you haven't.
So,
I've never met him. I don't know.
By the way, he's actually a very smart guy. We've had him on the podcast, but there's a civil war going on a little bit right now where Tucker, Ben Shapiro is obviously a very different position. Yeah. What's your position when it comes down to the nuclear war?
I like your response here, by the way.
What's the response? Are you showing that one? Okay. Jeremy is in the entire premise of being a critical thinker to question things. Some of the best podcasters and influencers are those who question what no one else is questioning. Being anti-establishment is to question the establishment's motive. By the way, he responds to that. Rob, if you want to put the other one, then he puts, it is not critical thinking to say that America never landed on the moon or that George Bush orchestrated the 9/11 attacks. It is a rejection of critical thinking. And then I had one last response to him, which was kind of an interesting one. You want to play this one, Rob? I understand your point. However, I'm not a Christian because I broke bread with Jesus. I've never met him face to face. That requires a level of faith I'm willing to risk taking. But it also takes faith to believe that we landed on the moon or someone's involvement in the 9/11 attacks. Having that level of unwavering faith in the U.S. government is what I'm not willing to risk. History does not favor blind faith in any government. That was my position.
Beautiful.
Great response.
Beautiful.
Where do you stand with this?
I think of, one of the famous speeches that President John F. Kennedy made when he talked about his own experience of being confronted with the possibility of a nuclear war being launched, and how he exercised the kind of leadership we should have in our country, where even as people in his own cabinet were encouraging him to take military action that he knew could spark a nuclear war with the Soviet Union. He instead chose to go behind their backs and conduct direct negotiations with the Soviet Union to walk back from the brink, because those two leaders recognized what Tucker was pointing out, that nuclear war leads to one place: the end of civilization, the destruction of living things, people, humanity on this planet. That is where nuclear war leads. And so, you know, while and Tucker Carlson is a good friend. We've had a lot of amazing conversations. I may say things a little differently, but what he's talking about here really is how too many people celebrate the use of nuclear weapons, and so carelessly, both pundits on TV and people in Washington and those who make a lot of money from making these nuclear weapons very carelessly talk about a nuclear war being waged as though it can be won. And that is the real issue. And Ronald Reagan famously said that a nuclear war cannot be won and should never be waged. I'm paraphrasing it slightly, but that was his message. And so you've got a Democrat president and a Republican president, both who understood during that Cold War the very, very catastrophic consequences of a nuclear war being waged. So we look at where we are today. You've got the big strategic nuclear weapons that can take out entire cities or countries. You've got the tactical nuclear weapons that they say, well, they're smaller, they can be mobilized, they can be moved, and they can be used in a very targeted way, as though it's just another kind of mortar or bomb or missile that can be launched. The reality remains true, that was pointed out by JFK and Ronald Reagan, that our goal should be to make it so we are never at a point where the nuclear option is being considered. This is where diplomacy and leadership is so necessary, because under this administration, we are on the precipice of nuclear war. We are facing the prospect of a nuclear catastrophe, whether intentionally or unintentionally, because conditions have created such an environment, more so now than any time, certainly since the Cuban Missile Crisis. This is a reality. Those in Washington have bunkers where they will be protected, if not from the blast itself, then the nuclear fallout and the nuclear winter that will follow. The rest of us don't have that luxury. We saw this in Hawaii, and we've talked about this before, I think on your show, about what happened when we had that missile scare in Hawaii. When on a Saturday morning, this alert went out saying, missile inbound to Hawaii, take shelter immediately, this is not a drill. Growing up in Hawaii, who are the people closest to Hawaii that could reach us? North Korea, nuclear capable. They have intercontinental ballistic missiles that can carry nuclear warheads. So for those minutes on that early Saturday morning, it was just a question of how many minutes do we have until we are completely obliterated. While that turned out to be a false alarm, the reality of that threat was very real. It was something that I had hoped would be a wake-up call for leaders across the country, because what we saw was the message says, take shelter immediately, this is not a drill. And for us, for the people in Hawaii, just like for those of us sitting here, if our phones were to go off right this second with that message, missile inbound right here, take shelter immediately, where do we go? What do we do? How many minutes do we have? Where is there a bomb shelter that will protect us from the blast, that will give us clean water to drink and air to breathe and food to sustain ourselves for the time that would allow us to survive this? It doesn't exist. So they spend trillions of dollars investing in these nuclear weapons and growing them, which you know, this is not like any other, like, it's not like, okay, how many rounds do I have left in my magazine? One of these nuclear weapons today is already far more powerful, many times more powerful than the nuclear weapons that were dropped in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. All it takes is one. The serious consequences of what we face are very real. So what do we do then? We should work towards getting ourselves in a place where we are not on the brink of nuclear catastrophe. We are reducing the proliferation of nuclear weapons in the world, and working with leaders of other countries, even those that we may not like or have adversarial interests, to try to get across what JFK was successful in doing, and saying, hey, if we care about the existence of our own people and humanity as a whole, it is in all of our best interests to try to reduce this risk of nuclear war.
For everyone out there that's watching, Tulsi is officially on Connect. Rob, if you can show her Connect, the first 50 people that connect with Tulsi, we will send you a copy of the book as well signed. We bought copies to get it out there because we are so confident in her message being out there. We feel more people need to hear from her. So the first 50 that connect with Tulsi, ask her whatever questions you got. And those 50 names we're going to send you a copy. Just make sure you're in America. If you're anywhere else outside of America, we're not shipping to you. If you're not in America, don't do the Connect. Only in America we'll ship the copy to your first 50 states. Thank you for that.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.